When the doors of the Sistine Chapel closed in 2013, the world expected tradition. But what emerged from the smoke wasn't just a new pope, it was a quiet revolution. For over 200 years, the papacy had followed a predictable path. But this time, history was about to be rewritten by a man who was never supposed to be there. This is the story of how one man's humble identity broke centuries of tradition and sent shockwaves through the Catholic Church. Before he wore white, before the world knew his name, he was Jorge Mario Bergoglio, a young man walking the crowded streets of Buenos Aires, Argentina. His world wasn't one of gilded palaces or ancient manuscripts. It was a world of bustling street markets, the rhythmic clatter of railway stations, and the hard-working spirit of ordinary people. Shaped not by privilege but by the daily struggles he saw around him, Jorge's heart was forged in the simple, often harsh, realities of life. This boy from the end of the earth, as he would later call it, was learning lessons that would one day challenge the very center of global power. As a young man, he made a pivotal choice. He didn't seek a career in law or medicine. Instead, he joined the Society of Jesus, better known as the Jesuits. This wasn't just any religious order. The Jesuits were the intellectuals, the educators, the Marines of the Church. They were known for their rigorous discipline, their dedication to scholarship, and their willingness to question the world. For Jesuits, faith wasn't a blind leap. It was a journey that had to walk hand in hand with reason. They were trained to be thinkers, debaters, and missionaries who pushed boundaries. This environment of intellectual curiosity and spiritual depth would become the bedrock of Bergoglio's worldview. But there was a catch, a crucial detail at the heart of the Jesuit identity. Every Jesuit takes a special fourth vow, a promise to God to refuse high office in the Church. They actively avoid ambition, titles, and the corridors of power. This vow was designed to keep them humble, focused on their mission of service and education, not on climbing the ecclesiastical ladder. Becoming a bishop was discouraged. Becoming a pope was completely off the table. It was, quite literally, against the rules. For Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the path to the papacy was not just unlikely. It was a path he had sworn to avoid. By the early 21st century, the Catholic Church was at a crossroads. It was an institution grappling with its own shadow. Financial scandals, devastating abuse crises, and deep internal divisions had eroded trust and left many faithful feeling lost. The world was changing at a dizzying pace, and the ancient institution of the Vatican seemed unable or unwilling to keep up. Churches were emptying, and a profound sense of doubt hung heavy in the air. The faithful needed more than just a leader. They needed a source of healing and hope. The very soul of the Church seemed to be in question. It was in this climate of crisis that the cardinals gathered in the Sistine Chapel for the 2013 Papal Conclave. Locked away from the world, they began the solemn process of choosing a new leader for 1.2 billion Catholics. Votes were cast, ballots were burned, and plumes of smoke rose from the chapel's chimney. The world watched, waited, and held its breath. First, black smoke signaled no decision. Then, on the second day, a different color emerged against the Roman sky. White smoke. A pope had been chosen. In St. Peter's Square, a massive crowd erupted in cheers as history shifted on its axis. And then a man stepped onto the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. But the figure who appeared was not triumphant or regal. He was quiet, almost hesitant. Instead of offering a grand apostolic blessing, he did something utterly unexpected. He bowed his head. He asked the tens of thousands of people gathered before him and the millions watching worldwide to pray for him before he prayed for them. It was a moment of breathtaking humility. In that simple, silent bow, a new kind of papacy was born. The world had just met Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio. He chose the name Francis. No pope in the history of the Church had ever done that. It wasn't just a name, it was a signal, a bold declaration of intent. It invoked the spirit of St. Francis of Assisi, the 13th century friar who renounced his family's wealth to live among the poor, embrace lepers, and preach a message of radical simplicity and love for all creation. By choosing this name, the new pope was aligning himself not with power and glory, but with the marginalized, the poor, and the forgotten. It was a promise to return the Church to its most fundamental mission: compassion. And these weren't just symbolic gestures. The changes were immediate and tangible. He refused the opulent papal apartments in the Apostolic Palace, choosing instead to live in a modest two-room suite in the Vatican guest house. He was seen riding on a bus with other cardinals, carrying his own worn-out briefcase and personally making phone calls. He famously washed the feet of prisoners, including women and Muslims, on Holy Thursday. This wasn't a performance for the cameras. It was the authentic expression of his identity. He was living out the Jesuit and Franciscan ideals he had chosen for himself, showing the world that a leader's strength can be found in service, not status. But humility can be deeply disruptive, especially within an institution built on centuries of hierarchy and tradition. While millions around the world were inspired by this new approach, whispers of dissent grew louder within the Vatican's ancient walls. Some praised him as a breath of fresh air, a reformer who was finally opening the windows of the Church. Others saw him as naive, reckless, even dangerous. They feared he was diluting doctrine and undermining the authority of the papacy. A pope who challenges comfort is a pope who awakens resistance. And Pope Francis quickly found himself navigating a deeply divided church. Many people believe that Pope Francis arrived in Rome with a grand plan to change the Church. But the truth is far more complex and far more human. The real twist in this story is that before he could change the Church and the world had already changed him. His experiences in Argentina during its brutal military dictatorship, witnessing suffering and political turmoil firsthand, had taught him painful lessons about power, silence, and the cost of injustice. Those years of quiet grief and personal transformation shaped a leader who understood that institutions must serve people, not the other way around. He wasn't an outsider imposing change. He was a product of the Church's own struggles, carrying its wounds and its hopes onto the world stage. In the end, the legacy of Pope Francis isn't just about reform or changing rules. It is a profound reminder of a timeless truth. His papacy demonstrates that true leadership can be gentle, that real power can kneel in service, and that authority is most effective when expressed through love. He has shown that sometimes the greatest and most powerful revolution isn't a dramatic overthrow, but a quiet, steady, and courageous return to the simple foundational message of love and compassion. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the figures and events that shape our world. We'll see you in the next video.